We are neck deep in advertising and marketing every day. Social media, websites, billboards, football games, you name it, there's someone trying to sell you something.
How do contracting businesses cut through the noise and get in front of the right people? And what do you do when you've finally gotten someone's attention? How do you deliver great customer service the second someone learns about you?
Today, we're speaking with Marc Levesque, CEO of Webrunner Media. Webrunner helps home improvement businesses leverage their marketing expertise into more leads and improve their sales flow.
We're marketed to all the time, right? Like me and you in that core demo, 18 to 35. Well, I'm about to not be. I'm very excited about. I'm very excited for like ads about socks and stuff. But
that's what the transition is. The minute you turn 35, it goes to socks.
It goes like socks, barbecue equipment. Like I got one the other day. For like an automatic lawnmower that's kind of like a
that's
Roomba
35
for your lawn.
Yeah, that's 35.
And but yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. But like, can you tell me a little, like maybe like one example of like a time where you're like, wow, this is some like amazing customer service?
Absolutely. So I was getting targeted ads for Four Hands Furniture, which is a furniture company here in Austin. And I had recently moved into a new place. So of course it was good timing on the ad. And I submitted a fill form on their website. I was curious about these counter stools that I saw. And they called me back. I'm not even kidding you, within 15 seconds. I was still on their website looking at the stools. And immediately they're like, oh yeah, we have a couple different options. And while I'm on the phone with Four Hands, they're actually sending me via email different links to the website and like the different stool options they have, talking about like pretty much all the different types of materials they're made for, cost, etc. And then of course I just like wasn't ready to choose right then. So hung up, took a look at everything. And then from like a customer experience standpoint, I got a very tasteful, not super pushy, but text message from them 2 days later asking if I needed anything else or if they wanted to send me more pictures. To which I responded and opted in and was like, yes, I want more pictures in like this teal color. And then 2 days after that, they texted me again being like, hey, did you see anything you like? Like, what do you think? In which I actually went into their storeroom and I bought the stools.
Wow. So now you're sitting pretty, as they say.
I'm sitting pretty on some Four Hands teal stools. And I think like the thing that I liked about it was I felt like they genuinely cared if I had questions or not. It wasn't the type of sale that was super, aggressive. Even from their advertisement, it was more like, ooh, like these are cool options for your space. And they really took more of like a nurture consultative approach when approaching me. And I enjoyed that. And ultimately that's why I chose to purchase with them.
Yeah, that educational factor is like such a big deal when you're talking to customers. Like, I had, and I didn't end up buying from this guy, but it was like the nicest sales pitch I think I've ever gotten. It was the siding company, and honestly, it was just like too expensive. Like they were just like so high quality. They're like, you wouldn't have to change your siding for 100 years, and
it's like a beautiful product. Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, if I live another 100 years, and we've gotten into some weird like biomechanics stuff, like I have my head's floating in some kind of ether. But it was like beautiful stuff. But he did such a great job explaining like what other home improvement companies won't do, or like what the product does do, or like really making an effort to like educate me and my family on just like, okay, like when you do buy, these are the things you have to be wary of. And it's like if I had and I won't even say the number, but it was a high number. I was like, I did one of those things where you open like an old, like an old Tupperware in the in the refrigerator, and you smell it, and you're like,
that needs more, to be thrown out. Yeah.
If it wasn't so high, and again, if I had it, I'd probably be like, yeah, no problem. Like these guys are my guys, because they're like, oh, if we see anything that's like, rotted behind the siding, we'll just take care of it. Like it's like stuff that they're like, and most companies won't do that. Sometimes you have to like buy your own 2x4s and all. Like it was like this whole just really, really great presentation on like the product and the process. And I was just like, and I like never have I walked away from a like being sold to feeling bad not having bought it. Like, you know what I
Interesting.
mean? I was
Yeah.
just like, I was like, bro, like you're so good. Like I want to, but I
Need to
literally
purchase
like
this.
my bank account says no. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we've had, we have so many experiences every day, of just being like sold to. We're considered a lead, a number, but I think the real difference that separates people or businesses from one another is when you stop treating them as a lead and treat them, like as like a friend, or like someone you would in your family. I think that's really like, I think that's at the end of the day what really separates people, because at the end of the day we're all kind of selling similar products. Like what really sets you apart is the way you communicate, how you communicate your value, your messaging, and like getting in front of the right people. So um all of this to say that I'm very excited for our conversation with Marc. If you want to learn more after this conversation with Marc about Webrunner, go visit webrunnermedia.com. And Sarah, you ready for this? You ready to launch
Yes.
into this? All right,
Super
here's our
excited.
conversation with Marc, folks. See you on the other side. Hey, Marc. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy to have you. We are big fans of Webrunner, and I guess just to start it off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and what Webrunner does, how you started it, and how you guys help contractors?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Super big fans of Hearth as well. So Webrunner, give you guys kind of the Cliff Notes version of it because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I'm one of the co-founders here at Webrunner. Webrunner, in short, is a marketing agency that helps home improvement companies generate leads more predictably and more profitably. We started this company about almost 10 or so years now. My background's in tech. I was in the marketing world. Got to see kind of the inner workings of the agency world, decided to start our own, ran a full service marketing company for half a decade almost before realizing that home improvement was the area that we wanted to really focus on. So for the past, 4 or 5 years now, we've been focusing exclusively on helping roofers, window and door contractors, replacement contractors, siding contractors, landscapers, hardscapers, you name it, anything to do with the trades, to like I said, drive customer demand in a more predictable fashion. So that's a bit about Webrunner at a high level.
Oh, that makes sense. And I know that you guys work with businesses of all sizes. I work with the Webrunner team a lot, small businesses, large businesses, enterprises. And I know that small business owners can be afraid to pull the trigger sometimes on spending, time and money on marketing, especially when they're craftsmen who spend, the bulk of their time focused on creating these beautiful, maybe kitchen and bathroom remodels. What are some of the benefits you've seen from contractors really taking the time to invest in marketing for their business? What are some of the long-term results of taking the time early on in the business to get focused on marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah. I mean, the benefits are many. I think we live in a world now where everything is driven by content. People are online, and people are working remotely. They're spending tons of time on these social platforms, engaging with one another. And so, I think as a contractor, we've been forced to really adopt change and find a different way of kind of doing things. I think the rate at which people have had to adopt technology has just been accelerated. And so in one way, that's a huge opportunity. Marketing is something that I strongly believe the home improvement company shouldn't outsource in its entirety. It's something that should, especially for a small business that's just starting out, there are so many things that you can do internally and kind of run and operate yourselves that can give you a leg up on a company that's not necessarily focused on running their own marketing. I mean, having a proper online presence, if you want to go into a couple examples here, I think, fundamentals today, you do need an online presence. But that in itself is not enough, right? If people find you online because they're, in market, they're looking for a home improvement company to help them with, XYZ, let's call it kitchen remodel, for example. Consumers are doing their research, right? They're reaching out to you when maybe 60-70% of the research has already been done. And so if you've got this online presence that hasn't really done a good job to help you put your best foot forward, meaning your presence is stagnant, you haven't touched your social media profiles in 6 months to a year, the likelihood of that homeowner reaching out to you is slim to none. So not only do you have to be there, but you've got to be active. You've got to show sign of life and really help give people a lens into what your world looks like, right? What does your day-to-day look like? What type of projects are you helping people complete? So I would say at the very least, that's something that a small business needs to be focused on today to at least get started.
Totally. I think about if I go onto a business's Facebook page and the last post I see from them is from 2 years ago, immediately the first thing that pops into my mind is this business no longer exists.
Right.
Social
Exactly.
media is so important in how I search, I guess, for whether it'd be like interior design inspiration, or, if I'm looking for even like a new mug, I'm looking at like their Facebook and Instagram page. And if I see they haven't posted in 2 years, I'm like, this is not a legitimate business. And I see that a lot with contractors because they know the importance of building the social page. They get that piece of it. But then I think you're totally right on where they miss the importance of updating customers, putting up pictures of before and afters, even just simple pieces like that can go a long way.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I think maybe to kind of add to that, so now you've got the idea of, showcasing what you're doing and that, you're there, you're active, but at the same time, because people have been forced to adapt all these new ways of doing things, there's been a lot of companies that have really dropped the ball on the customer experience side of things. And so that's another challenging thing to sort of navigate, because through digital is very difficult to hide, right? The good comes to the surface, and unfortunately so does the bad. So if you've got a poor customer experience, well, that's going to come through when someone's going through that online, call it due diligence process, right? They're vetting a contractor. They're definitely paying close attention to what people are saying about you, right? What are you doing? How are you doing it? Sort of thing. So.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I kind of want to go back to something really quickly. You said something about like consistent leads or like predictable leads.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so interesting because I think what we struggle as businesses that are, kind of like making their way or, just starting out is like that consistency. Like how would you guide someone into trying to, I guess maybe they don't have a huge budget, into driving more consistent leads? Like, what are some tools or maybe some tips you would give them?
Yeah, I think great question again. I think it comes down to where you're at in building your business. A company that's maybe sub a few $1,000,000. I think the first and foremost, when you're a new company just starting out, cash is king. And so naturally, you don't necessarily have those big budgets to throw around at, fancy marketing companies that can come in and help you out. So at the very least, you want to be focusing on everything that's foundational, right? So the way you go about delivering your service, the customer experiences we're just, talking about. And then of course, when you generate a customer, it's much, much, much easier to turn that customer into sometimes repeat business if you have a service that's conducive to getting repeat business at some point down the road, or to drive referral business. So it's kind of like trying to build this organic marketing engine. That's the first thing that contractors need to be thinking of when they're just getting started. And then, of course, anything that doesn't have dollars associated to it, but maybe more so time. So the notion of networking, forging strong ties and relationships with other industry partners or people who could refer business your way, that would definitely be where I would start. Now, once you've got that kind of foundation, well laid, the next step would be to quickly work towards building a customer acquisition model that you can scale. And with that, I mean, in large part, what we do here at Webrunner is we help customers invest advertising dollars online in order to generate leads in a more predictable fashion. So typically the dollars that we're spending are going towards search engines, platforms like Google and Bing. And then you've got social media platforms. So we're talking social networks like Facebook and Instagram and even YouTube at this point, right? So there's a way to invest dollars into these platforms to get in front of your ideal audience. Your ideal audience, obviously they have a need. They're looking for your products or services. They're in your market. And so we're leveraging these networks to get in front of them. And then the idea is that we're putting out a compelling message that is going to reach them at the right time, such that that's going to drive, inbound leads for you. And the idea ultimately is to be able to put a dollar value to what it's costing you to generate a lead on any one of these different networks. And then on your end as a contractor, to be paying very close attention to how many leads and what the quality of these leads are like on each of the different platforms, so that you can determine where it makes the most sense for you financially to invest advertising dollars, right? If I'm able to acquire customers from Facebook as a platform, for example, for sub $1,000, and I'm making $10,000 on my average job in terms of gross profit, that might be a network that performs much better than, say, Google or maybe any other platform, or maybe word of mouth, because word of mouth is good as it is. It's maybe not as predictable, right? So it's being able to put a dollar value to driving a lead and a customer on the different networks. That is that predictability component that I was referring to there, Dago.
That brings me to like a very, I guess, like an interesting question. That predictability, that kind of like statistical analysis. I know, small business owners, they don't have a lot of time to pour over spreadsheets and, open up the platforms and go over that stuff. What are some maybe like key metrics you would say, like you kind of mentioned one, right? Like how much does it cost for you to get a lead? And then, what other key metrics would you tell someone like, okay, you have like these 2, 3, whatever the number is, you have to make sure that you understand where you're at with those numbers, at least for you to understand like how you're performing. Because like you're right, you don't want to spend too much money, in one direction, and you're not getting back, what you really need to be able to turn a profit. So are there any resources, or I mean, it's not resources, but like numbers you would say you have to know these?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would agree that the worst thing that can happen to you in business is you're spending money on something and you're not sure what impact it's having, right? Imagine spending, whether it be 100,000, a million, or 10 million on marketing, and a certain aspect of your marketing is driving 90% of your results, but you don't know which aspect that is, right? Where is that revenue being derived from? So it's very difficult to optimize and improve things, right? That's always, the idea from a marketing perspective. Once you can clearly identify what's driving your revenue, and the good revenue, right? Some contractors I know are watching this and they're thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm generating leads, but they're not necessarily the right leads. They're for services I don't want to offer. So again, value and being really focused in your efforts. In terms of KPIs, it's really quite simple, and I think that's the good news. Unfortunately, there's typically a lot of ambiguity around, in the marketing world around the complexities of doing some of these things, but it's not that complicated. And you don't need to be a CFO to understand the numbers, right? So on the contractor side, you need to know what your average ticket price is, right? So what are you selling? How much margin is baked into these jobs, and what your closing rate is on leads. From a marketing perspective, of course, once you've got a monthly budget and you've got a dollar value per lead, it becomes much easier for you to determine whether or not you'll be able to hit your goals at the end of the year. So usually we advise people to work backwards. So say I'm sitting at $1 million and my objective is to get to 2 or to 3. That's fantastic. I've just identified a gap. Now, based on the fact that maybe, I need to grow by $1 million. If my average ticket price is, let's call it $10,000, well, I need to close 100 jobs this year. Well, if I'm closing, let's call it 1 out of 4 leads, that means I need 4 times that number of leads. So I've got to put a marketing plan in place that's going to drive 400 leads for me. And it becomes very black and white, right? It's if my marketing budget, my marketing plan does not allow me to drive 400 leads throughout the year, there's no way that I will come close to hitting, that $1 million revenue increase, right? So it's just being mindful of those 5 or so metrics and paying close attention to them as time goes on.
That kind of leads me to my next question a little bit. It's kind of tied to it, but we talked a little bit about, social content, or like being consistent on social media. And I saw something on your site that was really interesting about like creating ads, ads that aren't kind of like run of the mill, that, they're not like conventional, right? You guys you help contractors create, advertising that will, create more predictable leads. And that's part of it, right? There's also, there's the metrics side, but there's also like, what are you putting in front of people? What is going to get them to click on your ad or click on, your Facebook profile for them to come over and check out what you do. So I guess, again, we're talking like getting scrappy. We're talking about small businesses here. What are some tips you would give someone if they were trying to create an ad for themselves, like today, right? Like, oh man, like I have no ads. Like I got 0 ads. Like, what am I gonna do here? I want to really like just kickstart my business. What are some, I guess, forms or types of ads that you have seen that have been really good for small businesses?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing when it comes to marketing. Marketing at the end of the day isn't magic, right? You can't hire a company and expect that, hey, this company, the way that they do things is so revolutionary that they're going to take my business from, where I am today to where I want to get to in no time, with no wasted money, with, all the stars are going to align. It doesn't really work that way. At the end of the day, marketing is about putting something in front of somebody, expecting them to take an action, right? I mean, it's if I'm looking, let's go back to cabinet resurfacing, for example. We're talking kitchens before. Let's say cabinet resurfacing. That's pretty specific. I have an ideal, customer. My intention shouldn't be to just constantly be pumping out offers to these individuals, right? Like direct response ads, if you're doing this 95% of the time and you're just literally asking for a sale, hey, we're here, this is what we do, call us if you need us, call us if you need us. What kind of emotional connection am I going to create with homeowners if that's the only thing that I'm doing? It's very, very difficult. So what you can expect to do is, hire on some marketing company and, not be involved in your marketing whatsoever, and then expect them to drive volume of leads for you. That's just not going to happen. They'll generate some leads for you, but nowhere near the volume of leads that they'd be able to if you were implicated in the process. Because that homeowner who's in market to resurface their cabinets, right? They've got their dated kitchen. They don't quite have the budget to, rip it out and start from scratch. So they want to repaint the cabinets. Well, they've got a series of questions that they're asking themselves. What does this cost? How long does it take? Is it going to look good? Is it going to peel? Is it going to crack? I mean, so there's all these maybe misconceptions or things that they don't quite understand about the process. Well, that's your golden opportunity to come and educate that homeowner, right? That individual, and really build an emotional connection and build trust. And when you can get them to like you, you're way more likely to get them to reach out to you and at least get to the point where you can present a proposal, a bid. So that's how you got to think of your marketing. It's lead from a place of, value, right? How can I help people? How can I be valuable? How can I walk them through the process and ultimately try to reach the masses within your geography? And you want to get on the radar. You want people to know who you are. You want them to be aware of what you do, how you do it, the way you do it. That should be your goal from a marketing perspective. And so to answer your question, what are the best type of ads? The best type of ads are the ads, for the most part, that aren't necessarily trying to sell something. And this is where people get it wrong. It's okay, I need to do marketing. Great, let's put an ad out there and, position an offer. That will work 3-4% of the time, because that is the number of people that are out there in the market ready to buy today. But the other 97% of people aren't buying today. So you're neglecting that market if you're only putting advertisements that speak to somebody willing to commit today. So that would be the advice. I mean, and especially if you're a small business, small budgets, pull out your phones, start documenting what you're doing, grab the before and the after shots, walk through with the homeowners and get them on camera talking about, their challenge, why they reached out, why they decided to hire you. You need to almost create a library of content that you'll be able to leverage thereafter in your marketing mix, if you will. That'd be the best piece of advice that I can give for anyone who's really looking to get started.
And I would love to just encourage anyone who's listening who's like, oh, I don't need to take my camera out. Like they're kind of like shy about it. Contractors, they have all of this knowledge, all of this ability, but like, I feel like, and we had a conversation with Tom Reber recently about the confidence part of contracting and owning the situation. And it's like, this is your business. Like, make that effort to go and take your camera out, ask the customer, like, hey, are you willing to do a testimonial, a walkthrough on like what happened here? Like, I want to encourage anyone who's listening to like take that step, because it's not just, oh, it's for marketing purposes, it's for yourself, it's for your business. And I think that's a really big step for you.
And there's no better organic content than the content that you create. Ultimately, it's these are your before and afters. Like, it's not stock images that you're pulling off. It's real projects that you've been working on homeowners with, and that's invaluable in your marketing mix, as you said, Mark. Like, that's so important. Something that really resonated with me that you said is, marketing is such a huge part of driving leads. Obviously, that's the whole point. We're trying to drive as many leads to contractors as possible, and ultimately, leads are the lifeline of your business in the home improvement industry. But I think it's interesting in that you said that, no matter what marketing company you hire, it's never going to just save the business. It's never going to take the business from, a small business to 50 employees. But I think the way that you work the leads is ultimately what will drive that growth. I know that you've worked with a ton of home improvement contractors and seen, I'm sure, very much into the process of how a lot of these companies work their leads. What do you think starting out when a company has, now taken on starting to buy some digital leads, starting to work with an agency, such as yourself, what are some mistakes that you see those businesses make early on in working these types of leads? And then how do you see them change those mistakes in order to be more successful with working digital leads?
Yeah, there are many things that I think you need to be mindful of if you're going to start investing dollars into, getting more traffic, getting in front of people in order to generate leads. The last thing you want to do is light money on fire, right? So, that would be akin to, if you're putting lighting money on fire, right? It's putting dollars into marketing. You're driving people to your website. They reach out for information. It takes you 3 days to get back to them. That's exactly. Lighting money on fire.
Yep. You're throwing those leads literally in a trash can immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that I can speak to, because we've been doing this for so long, is that obviously there's a direct correlation with, the efforts, the systems, the processes that people put in place, and their likelihood of them seeing success and a greater return on the marketing dollars, right? Many times what we're doing for customers, I would say that, yes, there are, a couple of nuances between, one customer and another customer, different markets, different services, different price points. So all of those variables can change the outcome of what we do on a case by case basis. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, what we do is more or less the same. We were speaking to just a couple of minutes ago about the notion of being invested in your marketing so that you're creating content that a marketing company can leverage and turn into ads. So that's extremely important. But then once you've got that lead, how are you capitalizing on that lead? And again, that's one of the areas where we see, stark differences. A company who is not responding within seconds is going to lose out opportunities. So speed to lead, I would say, is one of the key factors there, that your ability to quickly follow up. Now, naturally, some people won't be ready to commit to an appointment right away. And so then it comes down to how good of a job are you doing at documenting that initial outreach, right? Who was it? What did they want? What did they, inquire about? And when would be the next best time to kind of follow up with them, right? That's assuming you made contact, of course. So I would say that's an area where people fall short. If it's not, an opportunity on a silver platter ready to be closed, okay, we'll burn it. And then it doesn't even make its way into any type of nurturing program, email campaigns, remarketing. I mean, nothing. Again, wasted money, right? Because we've spent marketing dollars to get in front of that prospect. It worked. Marketing generated the lead, and now that lead, it wasn't the ideal moment. Doesn't mean that the opportunity is lost forever, but just because the timing wasn't right, we just burnt it. So we see a lot of that, and that's unfortunate. The notion of the lead coming in and not really connecting immediately, that I would say, again, falls under follow-up. But you see some companies, they've got a follow-up process that can last 2-3 weeks. There's 20 some odd attempts scheduled in some kind of a follow-up system to ensure that they're at least able to connect with that initial outreach attempt. So they've got email in there, they've got SMS in there, they've got phone calls. I mean, you name it, it's in the system. So those are the type of things that you want to see in place when you're looking to, I'm speaking from my perspective now as a marketing company. If, a home improvement company is vetting us, we're to a certain degree vetting them as well. And we're looking to see, okay, well, what's their online presence look like? What kind of reputation do they have? What are people saying about them? And then how well equipped are they to handle, volume of leads? Because if we're going to help them generate leads and they're not able to capitalize on those opportunities, it's just going to cost them a lot more to acquire that customer, and the returns won't be as great as they may hope them to be. So I'd say those are, a couple of things to start, Sarah. The speed to lead, follow-up sequence, and then nurturing sequence as well.
I think like something that you touched on that resonates so much with me is speed to lead is just so important when you're working digital leads or you're just working leads that come off from your website. And I think something that we had a conversation with one of our guests last week, Sean, talked to us about is the importance of hiring someone in an office. I think a lot of small businesses and younger contractors have 3 or 4 guys out in the field, but they don't have someone in the office. And I've worked with contractors, for many years now. And I think the ones who I've seen be super successful with marketing campaigns are those who have people who are dedicated to calling homeowners. They don't need, a call center of 50 people, but having 1 or 2 really dynamic people in the office calling those leads right away, calling for follow-ups, and really keeping track of customer service and appointment demo set as well is just so vital and can take a marketing campaign and really allow a company to see so much growth and so much value from those leads versus just lighting it on fire. If you don't have that, because you're busy if you're out on a job, you can't do estimates, you can't give homeowners a call back, and you can't manage your crew. So having someone who can actually do that piece of the business is so vital for really making sure that you're not lighting leads on fire, throwing them in the trash, but utilizing every bit of money out of them.
Yeah, it's so important. And, calls are going to come in where people are asking about a service that you don't quite offer, but you're very well positioned to make an introduction to, another industry colleague, a contractor that well, who can offer that service. So now what happens is you've turned a lead that's not necessarily an opportunity for you to an opportunity for someone else. So by making that intro, you're helping that, potential customer get connected with a good contractor. You're helping the contractor generate a lead. You may set yourself up, if you do that enough times, that the other company starts sending you leads. So again, it's never a wasted opportunity, but that requires that you have the people, the systems, the processes in place, and that you pay attention to what's happening over time. You can't improve what you don't measure, right? So are you listening in on some of these calls? Are they recorded? Are you sitting down and doing some sales coaching to see how the calls are being handled, right? Because it's one thing to have somebody pick up the phone, answer calls, but it's another to train them so that they've got that salesmanship ability, right? They're able to do something with these opportunities. I'd say that's super important.
Totally. And giving the campaign time, I think something that I've seen contractors do, and they're tracking it, but they only give a marketing campaign. Either it could be something they run, it could be something they invest in. They give it 2 weeks. When realistically, we all know that the sales cycle can sometimes be 4 to 6 weeks to actually see return on your investment from those leads. So my biggest kind of takeaway from this conversation, really any conversation I have with contractors and marketing, is give the campaign time to see what your actual return on your investment is. Because it's not something that you're going to see the next day. You could set 5 demos and you could call the next 5 leads and they could be quote unquote not ready to buy yet, but you could close 2 jobs a month from now that were attributed back to that campaign. So it's really a baking period with so many of these, and you need to give it the time and track it with the right KPIs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, if your tracking is on point and you've got a good handle on what your sales cycles should look like, I mean, there's no reason why you pull the plug early on something that has a potential to work, right? Sometimes it's, spend money, generate leads, got a couple opportunities, nothing closed yet. Now you're getting, worried, cash flow's tight. Do you continue or not? If you continue, there's no way you're seeing an ROI, right? If you close one opportunity, that could be the difference between you being, losing money and being hugely profitable. So definitely having those conversations early on with whoever you're working with, whether it be in-house or outsourced, vendors on the marketing front, you need to have conversations around budgets and expectations to make sure that things are clear, well understood. What do the ranges look like? There needs to be, goals set, and, you're kind of benchmarking those over time to see how you're tracking, right? Last thing you want to do is jump into an engagement not having had that conversation. You've got one expectation, they've got another. Now you don't align. Your cash flow is such that, you do have to pull the plug at some point because, you're not going to make payroll. That would have been a conversation worth having a couple of months back, right?
Way before. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. Well, that was really all the questions that we had for you, Marc. Thank you so much. This was a really great conversation. Obviously, marketing and just following up with leads is so vital to contractors. And I know that this will be super valuable information for them. And yes, thank you for joining us. I know it's early this morning that we recorded this, but we appreciate you getting on. And for more information about Webrunner Media, please feel free to visit webrunnermedia.com, and you can reach out to their team. They'll be more than happy to chat with you guys about how you can be leveraging leads better, how you can be increasing your online presence, and working with homeowners digitally who want more information. But yes, thank you all so much, Dago. Thank you, Marc, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye.